Thrive Guys, episode 19, the 4:30 a.m. wake-up routine. It looks like, reading our show notes, you've had a bit of a ringer. Are you willing to share?
Yeah, I am. It's been a very manic week, and I guess in the interest of transparency with our listeners, people who would have listened last week would have known that I sold my house. And then
Indeed.
People that would listen this week would know that I've sold my house again because our buyer pulled out. So it has been absolutely hectic. It kind of worked out well because I booked a couple of days holiday and just had viewing after viewing. I think we totaled up like 24 viewings.
Wow.
Over 2 days. So it was chaos, but we've now got another buyer. So hopefully this is good news this time round. But yeah, let's see what's going on. I mean, it's been exciting as well because we've been back at climbing as well on the early shift. Been doing 6 a.m. starts or 6:30 a.m. starts?
6:30, yeah.
Which is wicked.
That's been
for
great.
climbing.
I've loved it.
We went to Hub. That was part of my, that was what I really enjoyed about this week is we didn't just go to the Bond Centre. We went to Hub and it was actually a weirdly different workout. So that was cool.
Yeah. So there's, for context for everybody who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, which is probably everybody listening.
Yeah, that's a point.
I would be surprised how many people lived in Milton Keynes and knew there was climbing gyms there and knew there was 2 different climbing gyms there. But there we go. Essentially, in the place where we go climbing, the same company have 2 different climbing gyms. One is called Bond, one is called Hub. The Hub one is lots more kind of overhangy type climbs, which basically is where you kind of climb on your upside down like a spider monkey.
Yeah.
Spider
pig.
And yeah, so it is spider pig. So it is a different workout, absolutely. But it's been great to go in the morning. But that's a bit of foreshadowing for what we're going to be talking about today. We
love a bit of foreshadowing on the show.
This is
Textbook.
Foreshadowing Central. Textbook, exactly. Yeah, I've got something to share about the Notion integration that I spoke about in the special episode that we did on the Notion API. I am still trying to get the calendar integration to kind of work reliably. It's still not quite where I need it to be, and it's broadly because I have to open all the apps that are meant to be doing the automation in order to get them to fire off, which is kind of a little bit. It's kind of counterintuitive and not very automated. So when I put a calendar entry in, I have a look at my Notion and it's like, oh, nothing's in there. Okay, let me open IFTTT to kick that off and make that start doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so then I can then see it goes into Google Calendar. Okay, that's great. And then I have to open automate.io and just right, when was it last run? Oh, it was last run 4 days ago.
Yeah.
Why? Why hasn't it run since, in the last 4 days? What do I have to... There's no button that is run.
The power
that
of automation,
happen.
Joe.
I know. It's I have to then sit there and okay, well, let me edit the bot and then not change anything and then save the bot. And then it goes, why don't you test your bot? And it's this is a really long-winded way of pressing run.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
when I do that, then it happens. And it's I need to... It's probably because I have the free plans on both IFTTT and automate.io. So I am just wholly unimportant to them. And so maybe I have to give them a little bit of money in order to actually get somewhere with it. But yeah, I just thought I'd share it.
So a good way of tracking it from my side with my Automate platform that I was using and that I built for myself, I send an email for anything that runs, which you'd think is problematic, but because it's a separate SMTP address or separate email address, I have it all just going into a box where it's this is informational stuff. So if something does fail, say for example, I leave my automation running over the weekend, on a Monday I'll wake up and I'll just go, right, did anything fail? Look in the failed folder, because I search the subject. So if it comes from my automation, if it's got error in the subject, then just whack it straight in a folder so I'll know quickly if it failed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's part of the bigger point is putting fail safes in for all this sort of stuff. So you don't have to do all that crap in the morning.
Yeah, totally. I think that so IFTTT you can get notifications which work pretty reliably, but you have to because it's running off of the phone. I think I don't really know, but I think it's running off the phones locally. So I have to when it's not been run for a while, it's like suspended. It's not like on, quote unquote. And so then I have to open the app, and then it goes, oh yeah, sorry mate, I was just having a bit of a kip over here, and you've got 25 calendar invites. All right, let me just scoop those up and put them in Google Calendar for you. Sorry boss, it's really I'm having to get up at 3:45 every morning because you keep getting up so bloody early. It's all of this, and it's just. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like I've just got a lazy worker.
I like that IFTTT is from East London.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. His name's Barry. Barry Ift. Shall we do Win of the Week?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Win of the Week is a segment at the top of each show where we get to share something that's happened this week that we would like to celebrate, just to make sure we start our conversation on a positive note. We post a reminder on our platforms every Friday, so if you'd like to share your Win of the Week with us, tag us on your post on Twitter or Instagram with @ThriveGuysPod or with #WinOfTheWeek. So Dan, why don't you kick us off with your Watawa?
My Watawa is very quick and easy this week. My car insurance went down, and I think it's the first time ever.
Oh, welcome to adulthood.
Well, I got the letter and I said, surely my insurance isn't due up now. And I opened it, obviously getting prepared for more outgoings because, as I was saying, I'm selling my house, so it's paying solicitors and all this sort of stuff. So money's just falling out of the hole in my bank account. And then I opened it and I'd saved quite a significant amount of money, which I just didn't expect. So that's my win of the week. What about yourself?
Well, I mean, that's a win. That's great. You did nothing to, apart from just be older, there was nothing that you did to make that happen. But sometimes those are the best wins.
Exactly. Unexpected wins.
Fall in your lap. Exactly. My win of the week is being able to have our first indoor get-together last night.
I was there. Wow.
I know.
Bloody hell.
You were there?
Yeah.
And I was there? And you were there?
And friend of the show was there.
Friend of the show, David Bogner, was there. The illustrious, elusive David Bogner. He was there in all of his glory with his Barnet Fair,
Needs a bloody
which means hair, like a Colombian drug lord. Lots of curry was eaten, and it was delightful. So credit to friend of the show, Emma, and good times were had. And Kaylee and I have our first date night tonight, where we're going to a Thai restaurant near where we live, and that is the first date night we've had in what feels like literally months, and that's awesome. It feels awesome that life is going to go back to some sense of normality. And I'm here for it. So again, my win of the week isn't something that I had any material influence in, but it's important to celebrate these kind of things when they come around.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. And, calling me insufferable around the dinner table. That's what I'm going to... That should be your win of the week.
Yeah, do you know what? That was a joke that fell flat on its face. I was like, so Kerry, how insufferable has Dan been this week? Like, thinking everyone would be like, ha, ha, ha. And it was just flipping silent. And I was like, oh, shit.
No amount of editing is going to save you.
No, yeah, well, it was real life. I can't, can't edit it now.
That's
can't
the
edit
problem
it now.
With going back into real life. No censorship.
No censorship. It falls out of my mouth like it falls out of my backside. So there we go. I was trying to make a joke because
I enjoyed it.
I know you enjoyed it because I was sitting there just like squirming, just like, oh fuck, if I said something real bad. Anyway, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this week's episode. So to remind everybody, about 4 weeks ago, we set ourselves a number of challenges. We called them productivity hack-speriments, where essentially we pick the 4... I don't know whether we could consider them the best or the most popular, but they're the ones we chose. We picked 4 productivity hacks that we decided to experiment and try out for you, dear listener, so you don't have to. And for a period of 2 weeks, we are going to be jumping in with 2 feet on various productivity hacks. Now, the first one that we did was cold showers, and I'll put a link to that episode in the description. It was an interesting one, but I would say it wasn't the most valuable one so far, as a bit of foreshadowing. Mm-hmm. Now, the one that we have just come off the back of as of today is the 4:30 a.m. startup wake-up routine. And just to recap why this is sort of considered a productivity hack, this has come up in a number of sort of CEOs' morning routine articles on, Business Insider or whatever. And there's a chap called Jocko Willink that he essentially he was like a Navy SEAL, and he was the first one that I saw that kind of touted this, waking up at 4:30 a.m. and basically crushing it before everyone else is awake. And so there are a few principles that we wanted to sort of test and experiment and just make and see whether that happened for us. So just to remind everybody, the first thing was being up before everyone else. So, it being an uninterrupted amount of time that you can do the things that normally during the day you would get too distracted to do. So for Jocko, this was working out, but for other people, it could be anything. And we'll go through what we use the time for in a bit. The second point is you start the day overcoming a big challenge. So it's like a mindset setup for a kind of a let's win attitude for that day. So, if you start your day overcoming the comfy pillow and bed, you're starting the day in the right way, so they say. And the third primary thing was building discipline. So, to use Jocko again as an example, he says himself that it doesn't feel good waking up in the morning, like at 4:30. And I've read lots of other accounts of people waking up between 3:30 and 5 a.m. and they all say it gives them discipline that helps them, that carries them into other parts of their day. So, the idea being if you get up at 4:30, hit the gym, did a run, smashed out a load of work, the idea is that you're less likely to give in to, someone in the office offering you that donut that you so would love, but it's like, hang on a minute, no, I've set the day up in the right way. I'm gonna swerve the donut, I'm gonna swerve the nut, and I'm gonna have a stick of celery.
Chocolate. Oh yeah.
No, that's probably worse. It's all
donut
butter
with fruit
and
in
chocolate.
it instead.
A donut with fruit in it instead.
Apple donut. Yeah.
So the purpose was to increase discipline and increase fulfillment as a result of getting something done that's important to you in that time. So that was kind of what we said 4 weeks ago that we were sort of most excited about. So, Dan, what did we predict was going to happen as a result of us giving this a go? Like what were we sort of predicting we would see as benefits?
We predicted that we would struggle. We predicted. I remember discussing this and thinking this is probably the one I would get the most value out of. I remember saying, do you know what? This is the one I'm looking forward to because getting up at 4:30 sounds amazing. Think of all of the stuff I can do in the morning. Literally, I was like, that's so much extra time before I start work. Like, I can get so much done. Like, there's going to be no one bothering me. There'll be no one on the streets if I want to exercise. And that I predicted that I'd use the time extremely efficiently and, wisely. I predicted I'd get ahead with Spanish lessons and writing my journal. I also predicted that from the negative side, I would end up being sleepy by the afternoon, but that it'd hopefully be worth it so you can kind of get a decent night's sleep. But yeah, I just remember being super excited, and that was my prediction. What was yours?
I looked at the show notes from the time. I had two predictions. Number one, I'll be tired. Didn't give me a lot to go on when prepping for this episode, but there we go. And number two was going to bed earlier is fundamental. And I think, a little bit more foreshadowing. We like dropping little things.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just skip to the bit where we talk about this, right? But I'm going to give you a little bit of foreshadowing. Breadcrumbs, going to bed was the bit that was the discipline, more so rather, than actually waking up. Waking up is almost the easier bit, right? It's the going to bed earlier that I think was the real tough part.
So I think we need to probably put a disclaimer in from this point onwards.
Okay.
Because we've called this the 4:30 a.m. start, and I know you've got a note around this, but we did not stick to the 4:30 a.m. start, right?
Yeah, okay. Let's get this out of the way first before we jump into our conclusions, right? Okay, you're right, okay. At least for me, and for you as well, Dan, to be honest. Let's be real. We both found very quickly that 4:30 a.m. was a totally unrealistic time to wake up.
It was barbaric.
It's just pointless. I would be awake, I would be up, I would be in on the old punch-in card, but I wasn't there. there. I was a husk of myself.
Agreed.
You know, and if you look at the data that I keep on time tracking, for those days that we did 4:30, yeah, I tracked a lot of time, but a lot of time was not tracked. You know, my productivity took a massive nosedive in those days. And equally, my effectiveness at stuff like critical thinking and, you know, decision making and just getting words out. I'm bad enough at getting words out anyway, right? The amount of editing that I have to do to my voice to make it actually sound like I'm not a moron is monumental. And so the last episode that we did, it was I mean, we got up early at that point, and it was just, it was bananas.
It was tough, yeah.
And my general mood suffered as well. You know, I was irritable. I was snappy. I'm a pretty, grumpy guy anyway, but it was a lot worse.
I feel like you're reading my notes because that's exactly how I felt. I have put as well here, I was irritable, unable to focus, slower than normal, and I just said I found it hard to do anything before or after work as well.
Well, I found everything hard to do at work. That was the challenge. And I tried to go to bed early. You know, sometimes it would be between 8 and 8:30. You know, that was about as early as I could get, like 8:15.
It's bright. It's May time.
This is it. It's light outside. It's the day still. You know, I finished work at 6 most days, right? And so that's 2 hours to cook and eat dinner before then it's like, it's time for bed. And, I'd be getting ready for bed, and it wasn't like it was dusk. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon brightness. It was just seriously like just light. And so the challenge that I had massively was that I didn't get enough, me time where I was cognizant of what the hell was going on. So, yes, granted, those hours in the morning were there and I was up and I was doing things, but they didn't feel like me time. They felt like working hours that I had to just kind of chew through in order to get to the next part of the day. Do you know what I mean? And, it in the evenings is like my downtime, and that's really important to then recharge and then be ready for the next day. And I just didn't have that. And so, long story short, we both agreed to experiment with the wake up time in order to find something that felt a bit more natural to us. So it became less the 4:30 wake up routine and more the wake up bloody early routine. So, I mean, for me personally, I ended up settling on a wake up phase between 5 and 5:45, typically 5:15 to 5:30, but kind of broadly over the 2 weeks, it was about between those two signposts.
So I used the smart cycle, which is between 5 and 5:30 for me. So it'll be any time between those. But I think it averaged at like 5:05 or something like that. Yeah. And I'm conscious that doesn't sound that much different to 4:30. It's half an hour to 45 minutes, right? And maybe it is partly psychological because a time waking up, starting with a 4, unless you're going to, Magaluf for a week or whatever, and you've got to get that early EasyJet. No, I've never been. No. What a reference.
I know. I couldn't think of anywhere else in Europe. So I just thought Magaluf. Yeah, but I've never been to those who know me, I would stick out like a sore thumb in Magaluf. It'd be like 9 o'clock. I'd be like, I'm a bit tired. I feel like, shall we early night,
I just can't believe that. It's such an obscure...
I know. Well, hey, I just thought I'd go for it, all right? Yeah. But, thanks for pulling me up on it. It's all good.
I respect it.
So, yeah, look, the final point here is maybe the wake up time starting with a 4 just felt worse, right? And it wasn't we weren't measurably more or less tired, but I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
After making that change, I certainly felt like night and day in terms of I felt a significantly large amount better in myself, just in terms of presence. And I think you felt the same as well, right?
Absolutely. It was less of that fogginess, I guess. Like there was more intent applied to all of the actions that I was trying to do in the morning. Whereas when it was 4:30, Like I would get up and I'd be fine. I'd jump in the shower, whatever, and I'd start doing things. But I was just kind of doing it in autopilot. Like I would write in my journal without really giving it much thought. I would do a Spanish lesson, but none of it would really be absorbed. I would just be, maybe pick an easy one and pick something I know, or then I'm not actively trying to learn or trying to better myself. I'm just doing it for the sake of the fact that I'm up.
Yeah,
whereas the
exactly.
5 o'clock start, I was like, I've actually got quite a lot of time before work. I can actually enjoy stuff. Like I said, like in this section, it's like the painful reality of it is if you're an entrepreneur and need to get stuff out the way before work, or, you have, people doing most of your work in the day or maintaining the day-to-day operations of your business, this must have like massive intrinsic value for you, because you can get up and start planning and just shift that work to people and be like, right, can you get this done? Can you get that done? Or if you're working for your own business and you're just doing like documents and stuff like that, whatever, it's fine getting up that early. But I felt like for the average Joe or people that might listen to this, I don't think it should be taken lightly. Like switching your standard lifestyle to then going to a 4:30 start is massive. Like for us, it was quite easy because I think on a standard day, we'd get up at 6, half 6 anyway. And then moving that back to 5 was kind of manageable, right? But 4:30 just seemed crazy difficult. So yeah, I think as well, you kind of touched on it, but it's the psychological change between the 4:30 and the 5 a.m. start, which was just bonkers. As soon as I switched to 5 a.m. starts, I was fine again. I was just like, all right, I'm just getting up early. I don't get it.
No, I don't get it either. I don't understand why it was such a kind of a paradigm shift between literally feeling like you're hit by a bus to feeling like you were hit by like a Mini Cooper, which measurably is less bad, right?
But still bad.
I'm not going to be like, oh, I just felt fine, because I didn't feel fine. You can't feel fine getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And if you say, oh no, I feel absolutely fine, you're a liar, and I don't believe you. Whoever's out there who gets up at 5 and says, I feel perfect, and I'm like waking up with like birds tweeting around me like Snow White, and it's like, no, you're wrong. Stop lying. It sucks.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's all right that it's bad. It's kind of supposed to be bad. But don't wheel on my back and tell me it's raining. I'm getting quite passionate here. I apologise.
So I tried pairing this as well with the cold showers from the couple of weeks before, because I was like...
Oh, you habit stacked.
Yeah, because I was like...
You James cleared it. I like it.
I could not get up for the 4:30 a.m. start. I was like, I can't function. So I just let the cold water run, and I was like, I'm going to get in, obviously squeal, like try not to wake everyone up, just, and then just get on with my morning. And that was fine, but it only really gave me a boost for the first half hour of the day.
Yeah.
Where I still done meaningless work. Like I think I kind of touched on it a bit later, maybe in terms of the problems we faced, but it depends kind of what your lifestyle is in terms of how you can utilize that time in the morning. But
yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the critical point, right? It's if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, you will squander the time, and you might as well just get up at 6:30. If you've got nothing that you can use that time for, you might as well just not bother, because as I said, I don't know, 2 minutes ago, it sucks.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it just to put yourself into a suffering position, then I mean, maybe you're a masochist, but that's your vibe, and who am I to judge? But I would recommend against it. I mean, all of that said though, I did get quite a lot of value out of it after we got off of the initial, general unpleasantness of waking up at 4:30 a.m. I genuinely liked it.
Yeah, me too.
Let me paint a picture for you. Okay. So I genuinely believe that it gave me much more time to do the things that I wanted to do versus my previous sort of approach to life. Getting up at 6:30, lounging into the day, having a coffee, looking at my phone, etc. I found that doing editing or going for a workout in particular in the morning meant I was more likely to do it. So if I did it in the morning, I was more likely to just do it, period. Because saving those things for the evening, my energy levels are much lower, and my brain is more geared towards instant gratification. Having a kebab, watching some F1 drama documentary on Netflix, which I, by the way, 100% recommend, and I'll come back to that in a tick. But let me paint a picture for you. It's 5:10 in the morning. My Apple Watch taps me awake. Consciousness hits me like a freight train. I do not want to get up, but I know I should. So I quietly roll out of bed, trying not to wake Kaylee, but actually mostly failing. And this is one of the things that kind of sucked about the last 2 weeks is it did quite impact Kaylee's sleep as well, which I feel a little bit bad about. But anyway, back to the story. I roll downstairs for a cup of wake-up nectar. So I put the Nespresso machine on. I actually had to lift the Nespresso machine up off of the counter so that it didn't vibrate.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting. It's not light, right? Especially when it's got a full tank of water. So I'm just like.
Are you going to count that as your workout?
Yeah. I tipped my strength training box by holding that, And so once the coffee's made and the Java's in my hand, I grab my iPad and get under a blanket on the sofa, and I get to work.
I'm sorry, I can't let this go. You picked up your Nespresso. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You've never mentioned this in the whole 2 weeks of this. Why'd you... No one in Nespresso. So I just... Oh, go on, please. Just have your moment.
Dan's dead.
I'm just...
So anyway, I grab my iPad and get under a blanket on the sofa and get to work. Bleary-eyed and not yet conscious to the world around me, but I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start editing. So what about the distraction machines? What about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Well, they are quiet at this time in the morning, right? I may have had a couple of messages from people whilst I was asleep, but it wouldn't be fair to reply to them now in case they don't have Do Not Disturb switched on. Could you imagine me being that guy who gets a message at 5 a.m. because their idiot mate is doing some stupid experiment about getting up really early in the morning? You're probably not going to have a lot of mates after that. The next hour sees me engrossed in an edit of one of our episodes. I have time and space to try new things and not to rush it and to get it sounding fantastic rather than just getting it good enough to get out there, which is amazing. So I do that, and then 6:45 rolls around and I'm 35, 40 minutes into an episode, and I down tools and it's ready. It's time to start the rest of the day. Now, not only am I awake, and probably as awake as I'll ever be throughout the day, I can also start my normal daily routine about 40 minutes earlier than normal, meaning that I can have a much longer walk in the morning, so I get more exercise. Sometimes I'm out for like 5-6 kilometers, sometimes up to an hour and 10 minutes. And I can still be at my desk earlier than in the previous period, right? And that's something quite magical. So I can get a whole hour of work done, twice the length of walk that I would usually do, and still be at my desk maybe 25, 30 minutes earlier than before. I mean, that's massive.
It's an hour of passion at work as well, right? It's stuff you're genuinely passionate about. You're not just getting up and getting back to the daily grind an hour early just so you can get ahead of the competition kind of thing. It's stuff that you really want to do, which is part of the value of this, this whole experiment really is. That's what people say, is if you can get up and do something that you really enjoy, then you're making time for yourself before work. And then the whole work day just kind of feels a bit less tough on you as well, because you feel like you've accomplished something already for yourself. And then work just comes secondary, and you can really focus on it because you're not sitting there thinking, I really want to do something that I enjoy, or I really could do with going out and getting some exercise. It's already done.
Yeah, exactly. And if you set an intention at the start of the day where it's like, do you know what, today I've got so much editing to do, for example, right? Or I've really had a bad week in terms of, drifting from my workout routine. And so after work, I'm really going to do this. And, your workday might just suck. It might just be one of those days that just saps the energy out of you. And we all have them. And so you get to 6 o'clock and you're like, do you know what? Of all the things that you could do, doing an edit on a podcast or going and doing a run or, whatever it is, working on your side hustle, like you're just out of energy. You just want to lay on the sofa and watch crap TV.
Formula One documentary,
Watch a Formula One documentary. By the way, I would 100% recommend that. Great show. Seriously, it got me into Formula One now. I love it. So So let me back that up with some data, right? Because that's like an anecdotal, oh, it's so magical, I love it. Oh. But let me back that up with some data because, we are scientists, right?
Exactly.
And we need to use science to prove our point. This is the method. This is the way. So according to Toggle, which I use for time tracking, I did 8 hours of editing in week 1 and 3 hours in week 2 so far, not including Sunday, obviously, which is my editing day, which I usually do a couple of hours anyway. So that's looking like probably it will be 5 hours, which, given that we did a lot more working out this week, is about kind of where I would expect it to be. Now, I would normally do 2 hours a week. So what we're seeing here is a 300% increase in editing time that I've had over the past 2 weeks, which is massive. It's a huge jump. And I'm actually way ahead of the editing kind of slate that I've got to do than I ever would be if I just had, the Sunday morning coffee edit kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. I'm so much further ahead. The next 3 episodes are ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the pressure's off. It's awesome. And also, we managed to do a special episode out of time of our normal sort of scheduling where we recorded, edited, and got it up all within a morning. And so we were only able to do that because I felt comfortable enough that I didn't have this whole backlog that was kind of beating down on me. And that was all because I got up earlier.
Yeah.
That is measurable. That is like a measurable improvement. So, and that was what I spent most of my time doing over the last 2 weeks. And I said that was going to be my intention. And the other thing that we decided that we were going to do was working out. We were going to go climbing together, and we were going to knuckle on that at 6:30, because that's when the climbing gym opens. And I've got to say, Dan, I love working out in the morning.
Yeah, it's my favourite.
It's my favourite. Honestly, on the days that we went climbing, I felt such a sense of achievement getting back home before 8 o'clock in the morning and then going out for my walk, basically completely smashing the day from an activity point of view before most people had even started. We talk about this a lot. When we used to go running, one of the value sort of propositions we had for running at the start of every morning was before you've even started the day, you've won.
Yep, exactly.
So even if the day sucks and you just get your backside handed to you, that whole day, you can, at the end of that day, go, do you know what? I did have a win today. I got out and did a run and closed my rings, on the watch and blah, 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 blah. I had a sense of achievement that day. And this is the exact same feeling. Feeling like getting a head start on the day is so powerful for your mood. I look at my mood tracking over the last couple of weeks. I'm hitting 8s, 9s pretty consistently. Even though I'm tired, I'm still, in a good place. Yeah. And so, that for me, and, this sounds really obvious, right? But that for me was like a massive value piece. And this is probably why people get up really early and go and do a workout. And that's the thing that they do because they get that dopamine and they get those endorphins and it carries them through the rest of the day, I suppose.
That was where I found the most value, which was literally the exercise piece. If you get up and do a workout or you get up and go for a walk, then that's where the early mornings for me had the most power because you just come back and then at that point, Kerry will be waking up, we'll take River for a walk and stuff like that. And then I'm ready for the day. I couldn't agree more. I think that's fantastic that you've kind of got the same value that I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It has been paradigm shifting. I love it. So my final point on what I would consider good is the kind of sleep discipline. And so let me explain what I mean by sleep discipline. So sometimes I used to struggle with being tired at the end of the day. So what I mean by struggle with being tired is I would not be tired because I'd had a sedentary day, for example, and it gets to 9:45 and I almost have to force myself to bed so that I can get the right amount of sleep so that, I'm not a mess the next day. Now, this was not the case in this experiment. Apart from the time where I was binging F1 Drive to Survive, which 100% great show, 100% recommend. 5 Joe Page stars there, great show. Apart from those times, because it was so engrossing, and all of my melatonin was just like paused while I was watching this thing. I was engrossed. But apart from that, I would be wiped out by the end of the day. And so I would sleep like a baby. Yeah. But I did not have any problems getting to sleep.
Actual restful sleep as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't get enough, but we'll come to that. But I actually getting off to sleep was pretty easy actually, and that's something that has massive intrinsic value to me. So yeah, that was the good. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I know that your sort of raison d'etre, your passion project was kind of tricky to do in this sort of experiment. So why don't you tell me a little bit more, or tell the listeners a little bit more about some of that sort of friction that you faced?
Literally, the biggest problem I had is that my hobby is music. Like,
Yeah.
it's so difficult to get up and want to work on music because it's like a very creative process. Like editing, isn't creative as such. You just, you're chopping and changing, right? It's not, you're not adding. I'm not trying to put you down, but
way to literally like just trivialize the 2 hours that I spent. It's just like chopping and that, isn't it? It's just chopping and changing.
Yeah, sorry, I realised how that came out after I said it. But no, my hobby's making music.
You're
right?
getting me back from my comment yesterday.
Oh yeah, for sure. So writing music, producing, and just generally creating. But if you're like a functioning member of society, it's unreasonable to expect that you'd get up and turn your speakers on and start blasting music, even quietly at 4:30 in the morning, because even a very low volume is going to wake people up, right? And having headphones, you just don't want to be blasting your ears with music first thing in the morning and trying to create. Because even if you've got headphones on, because I know people that are listening to this might go, do you know what? Well, just use your headphones to start writing music. It's like, well, you've got a keyboard. My studio is upstairs, so as soon as I'm hitting the keys on the keyboard, you just hear it will resonate through the house. Yeah. And it's like, you'd think that it's not that much of an issue, but I guarantee a couple of chords in, I'll get Kerry come storming through the door and say, what are you doing?
Will you be quiet? What?
Yeah. It's 4 in the bloody morning.
Do you know what time it is?
You actually do a better impression of Kerry than I do. So
yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, accurate.
So that was the main problem I faced, is that my hobby I couldn't really proceed with. I couldn't really, move on my audio work or anything that was backlogged and start working on that. I mean, I guess I could have if it's just mixing, but it's like getting yourself in that mindset is really, really difficult in the morning. So I did manage to, when we swapped to the 5 o'clock starts, I would spend a lot of time actually on my journal, whereas normally I just kind of fill it in throughout the day and go, right, what am I thinking about? And, what have I achieved and what have I learned? Whereas on the 5 a.m. start, when you've got no distractions, you can really think and get a bit more into like a journal state of mind and kind of be more reflective, which I enjoyed because I could look back and, look at my mood. And especially with the house situation going on, getting up early gave me so much value because I could sit there and think about what had happened and what my next steps were, because it's arguably one of the most stressful things you can do. Is selling and buying a house, right? Because it's reliant on so many moving parts and reliant on trust and loyalty and other people, like, following up on their word and document after document and all this sort of stuff. And being up early allowed me to just have some time to myself to be like, maybe it's not as bad as it seems, or maybe this is what we can do today. Like, who can we call? It allowed me to put like a list of things together in terms of, we need to call our solicitor, we need to send this across to them, or we need to make sure the buyer has this information ready. And I organized all of our files into like a Dropbox location, which was split into the relevant sections, which makes it easy now moving forwards. If our transaction goes ahead swimmingly, I can just go, right, you need, the energy certificate of the house that was built whenever it was. Yep, here you go.
That's good.
So yeah, although there were problems in terms of doing my hobby, I could still do stuff I was passionate about as well, like climbing. And that's why I wanted to make a big point of it. It seems bonkers when if we'd have said this a couple of weeks ago, do you want to go climbing at 6:30 in the morning? And the answer is probably, I'll give it a go, but probably not.
No, I'm sorry. If we weren't doing this experiment and we hadn't, gleaned the value that we've gleaned from it, if you were like, hey man, do you want to go climbing tomorrow? And I'd be like, yeah, sure, yeah, no worries. Yeah. What time are you thinking? Normal time, 5:45 p.m. And you'd be like, no, 6:30. I'd be like, no,
not
at all. Mad? Are you a madman? Like, I'm in bed with my coffee. No way. Well, but now I'm all for it. Actually, getting on the wall and bleary eyed and actually, breaking a sweat and just killing yourself for a half an hour, wrecking your hands and stuff. Love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Give it to me every morning. Love it. So, okay, we've talked about the we've talked about the good. I'm afraid we are going to have to talk about the bad as well, Dan. I know we don't like being negative, but we have to go through the drawbacks. We have to go through like what the bad was. And so there are quite a few. So the first major problem I found was, it's really simple. I am just not getting as much sleep as I was previously. I've been recording my data using various different apps and things like that, and I'll sidebar this in a tick because it's been quite frustrating. So sometimes I would slip up on my bedtime, and it would hurt that much more with the new wake time than it did before. So, in particular, when I was watching F1 Drive to Survive, great show, 100% recommend, by the way. I don't think I've mentioned that before, but it is a fantastic show. Really engaging, and one that I would recommend to everybody watching. So looking at the data, I'm going down from a solid 8 hours to roughly 7 hours and 15 minutes, or from 7 hours to 6 hours, depending on what app you look at. Now, sidebar here, I used Sleep Cycle to measure my sleep using my Apple Watch. I've used it for years. I always thought that it was reliable. And I also looked at the Apple Health app to kind of do a cross-reference to see, okay, is the data like the same in both apps, right? Now, all the data is captured from the watch, and so it's captured in like the native, whatever recording instruments that the watch is using, and then it's pumped into the Health app, and then that's pumped into Sleep Cycle. So the data is identical is the main point, right? Now, Apple Health and Sleep Cycle report wildly different data in terms of when I'm actually sleeping. Like the difference is about an hour between the two. Sleep Cycle, I think, is the more accurate one, simply based on how I'm feeling. Like, your intrinsic, okay, how tired am I? How much sleep am I actually getting? Because that's the one that is reporting that I'm getting like 6 hours. And it feels like I've had that amount of sleep based on kind of previous experience. However, before we started this experiment, I would be in bed a consistent amount of time on both apps, so about 8 hours. And Sleep Cycle would be reporting between 6.5 and 7 hours of sleep. So I'm only getting just over 30 minutes less sleep, apparently, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels measurably different, more different than that. So the conclusion is, I have no idea how much sleep I was getting before, and I have no idea how much sleep I'm getting now because software is stupid and it doesn't work. It's inconsistent. But I can tell you that I feel more tired, and that's a problem, right? Because that's kind of telling me that I'm probably building up a bit of sleep debt, which isn't good.
Yeah.
It will shorten my life, and now I don't want my life to be short, So that's the end result, right? And I'm going to start hallucinating and stuff. But that's the first main problem, and I think that is largely due to the inconsistent sort of go to bed time, and that's something that is fixable, I suppose. Kind of leading on to that moment to moment, I do feel less productive during the working day. So there were times this week where I just kind of spaced and went on my phone for a little bit longer than I would normally do, and if looking at my screen time, my phone screen time is up as well. And, it's difficult to say whether that's down to the earlier mornings or because the days where I was spacing more, I had more time to space more. So, opportunity, motive, all of that kind of stuff. And that the reason why I say that is because on the days where I was jam-packed with calls and follow-up and stuff and closing business, the stuff that I'm really kind of on, in truth, I was absolutely kind of firing on all cylinders for the most part. So I didn't feel like I was like wading through treacle there. I felt like when I needed to be on, I was on. And so, I feel like it was worth mentioning, but I'm not sure if that's just, it's not a very scientific kind of point to make.
No, I like that analogy in terms of wading through treacle, do you say?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I like that because that's exactly how I kind of felt with the lack of sleep. The way I kind of describe it is having a foggy brain. When you're like, that's how I felt, especially more so with the 4:30 a.m. starts. And I tend to feel a bit like that still towards the latter half of the day. Like from 5 o'clock in the morning till probably midday, I'm like you were, firing on all cylinders. And I try and get as much work cranked out at that point and just smash through it, because I know like I'll take my lunchtime walk, take the dog out, come back, and then it's like I'm working and I'm trying to get stuff done, but it just feels like it takes me immeasurably longer time to actually do the work that I need to do. So that's kind of the big downfall for me.
I've got a tactic for you. Book calls in for the afternoon. So do your meaningful, brain heavy work, and then use, and this might not work for you, but what worked for me is I would do like the tough work in the morning, stuff that like was just a bit bitty, and it would be easy for me to procrastinate on it.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, I would book all of my kind of client phone calls and stuff. And the reason why I would do that is because, I don't know, something about being on, a call and having to push through because you're pitching or you're, negotiating or whatever it might be. Somehow I dug into something else that would just mean that, okay, well, there's this extra reserve of energy I've got that I'm now kind of spending in order to get through these calls. And so I'm still on. But if I would do, by contrast, the work that I would typically procrastinate on, I would procrastinate on it because there's not that kind of that pressure to perform,
the urgency
when you're writing a proposal or doing something that's kind of not really sales focused, but it's something that you kind of have to do. That would always just kind of it would get to like 4:30 and I'd have like a list of like 7 things. It's like, I've not done any of those today. And then, to be honest, that's usually my best time, because I would just go, right, half an hour, I'm just going to crank through these, and I would just do them. Maybe not the best that I would do them, but perfectionism is the killer of all productivity. So I would just get them done in half an hour.
Yeah.
Right, you've got half an hour, 7 things, go, run.
Run.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, like, if you're doing brain heavy work and you haven't got a list, like we talk on here about all of our, the productivity tips we use in terms of having like, a to-do list, we have Notion, we have everything there. I feel like if you don't have that, getting up early must really be a struggle, in the sense that I feel that time was getting away from me so often, and days.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like I lost days, but I'm just like, to give you an example, we're talking about, we went climbing, we would go climbing in the morning, we would then go off, do our own thing, start work. By about midday, I would just kind of forget that I'd gone climbing in the morning. It felt like all of it had blurred into like one big long day. So I was, throughout this time, I was arguably relying more on my to-do list. So I would try and get it written up in the morning and try and get my journal done, try and get all the, meaningful stuff ready. So then I could just come back and go into autopilot, because sometimes you feel like, hang on, what has been going on? It's just all happened so quickly. And now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because you're a bit like, slightly tired at that point. It's just it's a weird experience to kind of describe. I know it seems a bit excessive for just getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but that's my take on it.
I totally agree. I was leaning a lot more on making sure that I was disciplined in capturing inputs.
Yeah.
Just obsessively capturing stuff, because it's like, I can't, there'd be times where I just sit there and I'm like,
I'm listening, but I'm not absorbing.
No. And so I would just make sure that I would capture actions. It's like, future Joe will be better at dealing with this than current Joe.
Exactly how I looked at it, especially with like, this is why it felt so weird in terms of the house situation, because when our buyer fell through, or when we were looking for actually houses to purchase, it just felt like we viewed 100 houses in 15 minutes and that was it, because that's the span of time my brain could comprehend. So I had like exactly. a database of all the houses that we'd viewed and what our opinions were. So I could just look at that and, if Kerry was like, oh, what about that first house we viewed? And I'd be like, which one? Where was that? What did we think? It was like, you've rated that too. So, obviously don't want to live there. Done.
Oh, man. Like, my memory is bad enough as it is. And so, and that will just happen as you get older. You'll just not remember things. Like, I've got a friend who, there's these types of people who can just rattle off, whole scenes from like episodes of like The Office.
Yeah,
stuff.
my brother could do that.
and they'll just do it, and I'll just be like, I don't know what that is, and he's like, it's The Office season 4. It's like, I mean, cool. I don't even remember what my name is half the time, like, and you can remember that. Like,
correct.
Jesus. I have to call myself mate. So I've got a slightly, I don't know, off-piste one. It's not about like, mental capacity or anything like that, but it's a physical change. I have bags under my eyes, and they are bigger than what they were 2 weeks ago. I have definitely built up some sleep debt, and you can see it on my face, which isn't really ideal. But I just wanted to signpost that, and I think that maybe it's just actually I've just noticed them now because I'm starting to look at them.
Because you're hyper aware from all that early mornings. You're becoming.
Exactly.
He's beginning to believe.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was interesting, but maybe it's just it's just that I'm noticing it. I can't remember what the law is, but there's a law that, as you start to notice something, it just becomes ever present in when you notice things.
It's because you had your hair cut. Your hair was covering your face before.
Maybe I'm no longer cousin it, so maybe that's part of it too. The final negative point I wanted to just signpost was that, and I think this was quite a key one, to be honest. I spent less quality time with Kaylee than I have done, pre-experiment. So as I was up and about far before she was, it felt like I saw her a lot less, actually. And that was a bit strange. Because one of the things that we would typically do was have a coffee in bed to start the morning and kind of lean into the day. I don't need to get up at 6:30, but we do because we like having a kind of a leisurely morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that would be having a chat, in the morning. And, in the evening, when we were kind of settling down to bed, I would have a bit more time to have a chat with her then and, talk about our day and stuff, because I wouldn't be, so pressured on, I need to go to sleep because I'm getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning and, I haven't got time to talk. I'm just going. Head's hitting the pillow. I'm in snooze land, and so that was something that I didn't enjoy, but I think I just need to be more present in the earlier evenings rather than just sit and binge watch F1 Drive to Survive, which I would recommend. It's 100% great show.
They're not going to pay us,
but I mean, maybe.
That'd be nice.
Be our first sponsor.
A podcast sponsored by Formula One. The speed that we talk at, probably.
They've got some money, mate. There's big money there. Trust me. So, did you have any negatives that you wanted to share before we sort of wrap up and talk about, our conclusion, our verdict on the whole situation?
I don't know. I kind of resonate with most of the negatives that you've described. I haven't really noticed any physical toll. Still as handsome as ever for those people that haven't seen me.
Well, it was a low bar.
Yeah. No, I just felt like I've been a bit more foggy brained. That was it. That's the main negative for me. Is that I kind of feel like sometimes I'm just coasting by as opposed to, being like acting with intent and doing things because I need to. I do them because it's just what I'm designed to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to work, I've done this job for a long time, so I just kind of get up and I just crack on with my stuff. I wasn't doing a lot of meaningful stuff because of the foggy brain. But no, that's kind of it. That's the main negative for me. I haven't really felt super tired since we swapped to the 5 a.m. start. I do today because we had a bit of a later night last night, and I still got up at 5 this morning just because I wanted to stick with the routine.
Oh, I did not. I got up at 6:30. I was like, no way. We got home at like 11 p.m. And I was like, there is no flipping way. Like, even if I wake up at 6:30, I'm going to be shattered, right? And I don't feel too bad today, but I do feel tired. But yeah, fair play to you. That's discipline. Discipline, stupidity,
borderline,
potato.
For me, it's just that I like the routine of it, and that's what I've got the most value out of it as well at the moment. Is like just being up at that time and just doing what I need to do and just crack on and repeat, rinse, repeat, because I just love routine.
Yeah. So how would you rate the whole experience then, and what are you going to take forward from this whole debacle?
Well, since making the shift to the 5 a.m. starts, I've been, in my opinion, largely more productive in terms of getting up and actually doing stuff as the weeks have gone on. Like at the start, I was just kind of pottering around and just doing little bits, but I've actually started to utilize that time quite efficiently. Like case in point, this morning I was up, obviously, as I just mentioned, at 5 o'clock, and I amended some of my automation, ran through my to-do list, checked my emails, sorted the show notes, and updated my journal. That's all before we've even jumped on to have a conversation.
Yeah.
The whole experience for me since making the switch has just been fantastic, and I genuinely feel like I get a head start. You know, I don't foresee any benefit in my current lifestyle to moving this get-up time back any further. Like the 5 a.m. is enough. If I started my own business and I could get stuff done on the side, then maybe I'd move it back by half an hour. But at the moment, what's the point? The main thing is the 5 a.m. start doesn't impact my working role. That's why the 4:30 a.m. start was so, catastrophic to my work day. I couldn't get stuff done.
No.
That's the biggest risk is if you have a brain heavy job, getting up at 4:30 just seems to be so much more heavy on you and so much more impactful. So yeah, 5 a.m. start I can do and still be effective in my role, which is good.
Yeah. I genuinely felt like the taxidermy fox meme. Like when I would wake up at 4:30, I'd be in a horrible place. It would feel like I was hungover. Like I've not been drunk in like nearly 18 months. And it would feel like I am hungover. So
I remember texting you about this when on one of the days, I think it was maybe the second day of the 4:30 a.m. starts. And so I'd done stuff. I'd been up and I'd been active and, I still hadn't had my coffee at that point. But by 8 o'clock in the morning, I was lying on the sofa watching Netflix, which I never do. I was lying on the sofa. I start work at 9, but 8 a.m. in the morning, I was just lying on the sofa again, just like, can't get myself motivated yet. Still made it to work on time. Obviously, I work from home. I just turn my computer on and sit there and message a couple of people, start my job. But 8 a.m. in the morning, like I've never done that. And I was just lying there like, I can't keep my eyes open.
No.
It was bad.
It was bad. Worse than bad. So, look, my take on this is, if you can make an early start like 4:30 a.m. work for you, then more power to you, friend. More power to you. My advice, though, would be that whilst you might be up, are you on?
Yeah.
Right? I think being on is so much more valuable than being up. So I would personally focus on getting better quality sleep to be more effective, if that's your goal, than having less of it. It feels, the more I think about it, this whole waking up super early, the more it feels counterintuitive to like being productive, providing, you're not one of these really kind of short sleepers that only needs 5 hours. Then if that's the case, you want to go to bed at 11, get up at 4, who am I to stop you? I'm just a boy, For me, I need 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. So if I'm going to get up at 4, I'm going to bed at 6 because I need like wind down time.
And in British summertime, if you leave the window open, that sunlight's going to hit you. You're going to get burnt.
Yeah. I'm going to get sunburn in bed.
Yeah.
What? Exactly. So with that said, though, having an extra hour in the morning was so valuable. And it helped me get 3-4 episodes edited in that time, squared away. Whereas I would manage one every 2 weeks typically, right? And that's been great. So with that in mind, I think I will continue with an earlier wake-up time going forward because it does bring me value. It brings me more value than it costs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I've done an ROI calculation. I'm seeing a return on this investment. I'm pretty happy with it. Now, whether that lasts long term, because it's not just me that lives in this house, and it's not just me that my wake-up time gets impacted by, remains to be seen.
I don't know how you manage to wake up, Kaylee, with your haptic feedback.
It's because I get up and go and make coffee, which is why I have to pick it up.
Holding the Nespresso.
Yeah, I'm standing there just like shaking around with the centrifugal force of the Nespresso machines.
I suppose I'm kind of better off in that situation because Kerry just does not stir.
No,
She doesn't wake up at the best of times, so
Yeah, Kaylee is a light sleeper. So yeah, I think, let me put it this way. Cold showers or waking up at 5? Well, I don't have cold showers anymore. That probably tells you everything you need to know.
they're reserved for emergencies.
Yeah, emergencies that will never happen. So I'm not doing it. I like my warm showers. They are delightful. You can't take them away from me. No, sir. So that was a great couple of weeks, and something that, taught me a lot about myself, to be fair. So the next thing on the productivity hack-speriment calendar is meditation. I mean, I've bounced off meditation a few times as a way to manage my busy mind in the past. I've definitely got a Headspace subscription that I think I still pay for. It has definitely had a resurgence in popularity as our lives have become busier, more stressful, and more kind of always on. So I'm quite excited to see how this pans out. In particular, because I don't think that you're a big meditator. Meditator?
Look at me, Joe. I am not.
You have got that kind of like monk vibe going on,
Yeah.
but I don't think you are a big meditator. So I'm excited to see if or how this benefits yourself. So just to provide some context, we are going to be meditating every day for at least 10 minutes for the next 2 weeks, and we are going to be tracking our perceived focus levels and our perceived stress levels. And then we are going to report back in 2 weeks' time to see if it has transformed us into the Zen
Masters
that I anticipate that it will.
I hope so.
Have you got any predictions or thoughts on this, Dan? I know there's nothing in the show notes, so I'm guessing no.
I haven't got anything in the show notes, Joe, but you know me. I love a bit of improv. I feel like I've needed meditation for a very long time. I am very highly strung. Like, with the house situation, stuff like that, you're very well aware. I'm not even going to quote what I said to you the other day, but, I'm pretty highly strung. And I do feel like it's something I need as opposed to something that I'm just going to enjoy. I feel like it's something that I need to incorporate into my daily life because I do have a stressful job. I do have quite a lot of external stress at the moment. So, I'm hoping that it alleviates some of that. And I'm hoping that I just can find that sweet spot to be alone with, I guess, my thoughts and to kind of find a bit more serenity, a bit more peace.
I think what will help you, if I could make this suggestion, is to start with guided meditation. That kind of talks you through the 10-minute process. And Headspace, I believe, is one of the best. The man's voice, he's a British man. He lived in, I think, some monastery. He basically used to be in, I think he was a trader or something. He binned off his job, went and became a monk for ages, and then he came back and started Headspace. His voice is like velvet. It's lovely to listen to. It's almost like ASMR, but it's just so soothing and calming, and it's really useful to be talked through what you need to be doing. Because that's the tricky bit. If you just sit there for 10 minutes, you're probably going to struggle, right? But if you just pay a tenner for a month's worth of Headspace, I think that would really help you. So that would be my recommendation.
What about you? What's your prediction?
I'm hoping that I stick with it for the 2 weeks. I think I will benefit from it. I'm pretty unflappable, to be fair. I don't get stressed. I'm pretty good at managing my emotions, and I find that being overly prepared helps me manage my kind of my stress. However, I am a massive overthinker, and so I do struggle with kind of always playing things out in various kind of various scenarios, just over the top, in an over the top way, basically. So I'm thinking that maybe it will help me push those feelings to the side, or at least get comfortable with them and not let it kind of get to me, kind of thing. So I'm quite excited to see how it plays out, really, to be honest. So pretty excited. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to our show. And if you really, really liked it, please consider giving us a 5-star rating. That really helps us out, it helps us grow our audience. So only if you loved it, but if you did, then that'd be really good. If you'd like to hear more from Dan or myself, please follow us on Twitter at ThriveGuysPod. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Say goodbye, Dan.
Goodbye.